Cool. Hi, everyone. So today we've got Joe and Freya from AKT, and they're just going to speak to us about sort of the work that they do and the AKT do. They do brilliant work across the country, but I don't want to speak about it. They know it so much better than what I do. So I'm just going to throw it over to them straight away to introduce themselves. So Joe, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, sure. So I'm Jo Bandel. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Campaigns Policy and Research Officer at AKT.
Brilliant, thank you. And Freya?
Yeah, I'm Freya. My pronouns also she, her, and I'm Supporter Care Officer for London, so I work in fundraising.
Brilliant, thank you. Joe, would you be able to give like a brief overview of what it is that AKT do for anyone who's sort of not aware of what you do?
Yeah, sure. So we are a national LGBTQ plus youth homelessness charity. So we work specifically with young people between the ages of 16 to 25 who are homeless or are at risk of experiencing homelessness, living in a hostile and abusive environment. So we do many things, well, mostly our support services as well. So with our support services, or our caseworkers, I guess the key kind of priority for them is around finding that young person a safe home firstly. So we can do that through multiple ways. So through temporary accommodation through our Purple Door scheme, through our host program, or working with other partners as well to provide safe housing. But as is the case, as you probably know, with homelessness, it's not just about providing a home. It's about that wraparound support. So our caseworkers do a lot to support that young person, whether it's finding them a job, linking them up with different skills and opportunities and development training, or it's just about even like providing them with professional clothing to attend an interview. And I think mostly as well, it's around that emotional support as well. So a lot of young people will come to us when their confidence has been knocked and their self-esteem has also been knocked as well. Because as I mentioned, they're living in a hostile and abusive environment. So what we mean by that is they've probably been subjected to homophobic, biphobic, transphobic abuse, which tends to be verbal, but sometimes can be physical as well. So we would actually class that as domestic abuse, and in some instances where it's applicable, parental abuse as well. So they're dealing with a lot of trauma. So they're not only dealing with the fact that they've experienced homelessness, but they've also probably experienced some form of domestic abuse and parental abuse as well. So our services team do a lot to just sort of be there for that young person, give them that confidence, so then they feel empowered and feel like they have the capacity to then, make that next step. So we have support centres in London, Bristol, Manchester, and Newcastle as well.
Oh, nice. So yeah, there's a lot of work that's going on there, and I think you're right in saying it's not just giving someone a bed and saying, okay, this is where you sleep, this is where you rest now. There's obviously a lot else that goes on around that, and I think we'll come into some of those in a little bit. Freya, could you just give maybe a bit more of an overview of things from your side?
Yes, so I think in terms of like fundraising, or in terms of how COVID has like impacted things, or
we talk about fundraising for a minute, and we'll definitely come on to COVID because it's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of hard to talk about fundraising without it now, because the way that fundraising has happened since COVID has been pretty different. So in terms of fundraising, we get support through corporate, through individual giving, and through community fundraising, as well as some trusts and foundations grants. But a lot of the money that we get has through individual giving and through community support. So it's been really great seeing how people have been able to do that without being able to do kind of the usual routes of fundraising, and how that's all kind of gone online. So we've had lots of people doing all sorts of things, like lots of quizzes. I'm sure most of us have probably participated in 1 or 2 Zoom quizzes over the lockdown, and people doing like bake-offs. Obviously there were lots of races and running things that were meant to to go ahead that were all cancelled, you know, like London Marathon and everything. But it's been really nice seeing people just running the distance themselves and still fundraising for us, doing things like that. And then there's been lots of people sort of with online businesses, like small businesses who, I don't know, make things like earrings or prints and donating percentages of the proceeds to us. Lots of people that, the one that's been really nice as well is that people have donated money that they would have used for their commute, or that they would have been spending on like a night out. So it's really nice seeing people kind of, you know, supporting us in different ways. So there's been lots of different kind of online fundraisers rather than the kind of in-person ones. I think the other day someone was dyeing their hair rainbow colours fundraise for us, which I thought was lovely. And then different things like online dance classes and workout classes. So it's been really amazing seeing how people have been really creative in fundraising for us during lockdown. And obviously Pride was during lockdown, which is, you know, one of the times that we get a lot of support, because, you know, a lot of organizations have pride themed things throughout June. So I think at first we were kind of worried that would really impact us, because we weren't able to have, you know, the pride parades and all the different events. Like, we often go to speak at, you know, schools and different companies and things like that. But yeah, it's been really interesting seeing how that's gone online, and done lots of Zoom kind of chats about AKT during that time. And they've done, different organizations have done like fundraisers, and then we've come and talked, you know, online about things we do, so they can know a bit more. So I think it's been really amazing seeing like how the community has come together through this time, even though it's been a really difficult time for us, and definitely for our young people as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it has been tough all over, and I think across the sort of sector with homelessness and stuff, you're seeing amazing work being done, like whether that's people coming together or staff just really like doing whatever they can to sort of help and support everyone that they're sort of coming into contact with. Joe, if I just want to ask you about maybe a little bit more about sort of the people and the young people that come to AKT and you support. Like, I think when generally we have conversations about LGBTQ plus young people, a lot of the conversation maybe is around sort of people coming out and how that's maybe navigated at home, whether that's with family or other people that they're living with. How much of that is true in young people you see, and how much of that is a myth?
Yeah, so from our research, we know that 70% of our young people will cite familial rejection after coming out to their parents or caregivers. And so that is the primary sort of reason for why our young people face homelessness often, as well as living in that hostile or abusive environment where they have been subjected to the types of abuse I was mentioning earlier. But I guess in terms of our young people, as is the case with the wider sort of homelessness or homeless community, they're not a homogenous group, and they don't have a monolithic uniform experience. When we, I think, tend to sort of think of homelessness, we tend to think of rough sleeping. So a lot of our young people don't actually rough sleep, although this has increased because of lockdown. The vast majority experience a kind of a transient form of homelessness where they, for instance, there might be sofa surfing or staying at multiple friends' homes. So they're not necessarily street homeless or rough sleeping. And also, when you think of rough sleeping, you tend to think of someone who is white and male. With our young people, they're very diverse. So 68% of our young people are Black or POC, and this rises actually to 80% in London. 27% of our young people identify as trans, and 45% come from faith backgrounds. So when you're particularly thinking about race in particular and trans identities, we already know that these groups already face multiple oppression and discrimination anyway. So we're already speaking about a discriminated group anyway when we're speaking about the LGBTQ plus community. But then when you see those intersections of identity, it adds those layers of discrimination and marginalization further. So our young people do have particular vulnerabilities, and they're very sort of complex needs as well.
Yeah, definitely. And so sort of obviously, I think COVID has really highlighted how intersections in society have really been impacted by this. And so how has COVID impacted on the young people that you support?
It's had a huge impact. So just firstly, if we were looking at sort of our data, and since the start of lockdown, we've seen a 37% increase in our referrals. And I think it was a 107% increase in footfall in our London service support centre as well. So it's massive. But I think sort of the main kind of areas is firstly, mental health and well-being. So obviously we all kind of agree with the stay-at-home message, particularly at the start of the pandemic, for the public health importance. But I think less attention was given to what that means for someone who is in an unsafe environment, which is many of our young people. So a lot of the focus actually was on domestic abuse victims, but perhaps more so on intimate partner and domestic abuse. And it's not the case that, you know, we should be focusing on one over the other, but I think there was less of a focus on, you know, other people who do experience domestic abuse, and, you know, how domestic abuse and parental abuse is also experienced by LGBTQ plus youth. So the impact of basically staying in that hostile and abusive environment is profound, and we are quite concerned actually what the sort of long-term impact that will have on young people as we kind of, you know, when this pandemic is over. What does, you know, trauma, you know, how do you deal with trauma, you know, potentially PTSD and things of that nature as well. But also there's just the kind of financial worry as well. So the inability to pay rent. I know that we've got a pause on evictions now, but we already have had instances where young people have been evicted. So in general as well, we know that young people have been the most hit by the pandemic. So more likely to have been furloughed, reduced hours, you know, lost their jobs. So that financial kind of insecurity and the threat of, you know, eviction has meant that you kind of always, you know, the threat of homelessness is always sort of there. So those have been sort of, I guess, the two key kind of areas. So it's that financial insecurity, threat of eviction, mental health and overall well-being, safety, and we've also seen the rise of risk-taking sexual behaviours across genders. So using apps as a form of like a hookup to find somewhere to stay for the night, survival sex as well as a means to find somewhere to stay for the night, so you don't have to, you know, rough sleep or, you know, just to find somewhere safe. So I think it's had a huge impact on our young people in particular. And I think we're kind of sort of concerned with, as I mentioned before, this sort of being a long-lasting impact and how we will deal with that going forward, particularly because our services team have been swamped, as I mentioned, with the referral figures as well. So it's definitely been a challenging time, I would say.
Yeah, I think there is definitely real concern about what happens moving forward with this. As you know, we're yet to see really what some of the economic impact is. We're seeing some of it, but we know that there's more going to come. Freya, was there anything that you wanted to add in there to what Joe said?
Yeah, no, just like Joe saying that we've definitely seen such an increase in the need for our services during this time. And I think that lockdown has definitely shone like a unique spotlight on people who would previously have been considered like hidden homeless, and certain, you know, options that people were using before, like sofa surfing, weren't available anymore. So I think that people have been more aware of that in the numbers of people needing accommodation. So who were previously kind of underreported and undersupported. But yeah, I think lockdown has been especially difficult for our young people with, as Joe mentioned, the multiple oppressions that people face, and I think our young people who, especially like our young Black men, have been disproportionately targeted by police, which means that they've been moved on, which means that they haven't been able to have access to housing as easily. And I think that, yeah, we're definitely concerned about the COVID homeless accommodation coming to an end, and I think that that'll definitely increase the numbers of rough sleepers, and it's, yeah, I think worrying to think about how that will happen when the government's no longer providing the support.
Yeah, and again, I think there's real concern with that, especially in the run up to winter, and what maybe emergency provision traditionally looks like isn't really available this year. So there is still real concern across the sector what that looks like, I think. So in terms of like moving forward, or what maybe like the short-term future for AKT looks like, are there any sort of projects in particular you're working on, or is it just trying to really respond and help with sort of the fallout of COVID?
I think that COVID has changed, like with all organisations really, a lot of how things are done in terms of the whole aspect of things being online. So during lockdown, we introduced a live chat feature on our website, and have our caseworkers have done like online meetings with young people through like WhatsApp video chatting, and we've also been able to provide services and support to people across the country who we might not have been able to as easily before, because they weren't in the particular areas that we worked. So I think the online kind of aspect has been really interesting in terms of how we continue to work, and how, yeah, the future of our work is. But I think, yeah, there's obviously a lot going on at the moment in terms of going back to work and all of that, kind of navigating when that will happen and how that will happen. And so I think we're focusing on trying to be able to provide in-person support as easily as possible, but as safely as possible.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like there is still a lot of unknowns happening at the minute, so it's quite hard to sort of look forward and stuff. Just a quick one, sort of, you said about the live chat on sort of the website. Have you maybe come across at all young people maybe struggling to get online and access services at all?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Obviously, I don't work in services, so I'm not sure exactly if that's been something that the services team have experienced. I know that during lockdown, I think there have been cases where young people haven't had things like phones, so being able to try and communicate with them hasn't, always been easy, and then trying to provide support in that way. So I think some of the things that ways that we have supported people has been helping with providing phones and things like that in ways so that we can be in contact with them. But yeah, I think obviously there's been a whole lot of adjustment in terms of the way that we normally operate to having to do it through different councils and local authorities, and I think that's definitely been challenging in different ways. I think with some boroughs being a bit more difficult than others in terms of everything's new for everyone, and yeah, that whole kind of new way of referring people. So yeah, I don't know if there has any more to add.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think we had 200% spike in young people accessing our website. So that's been quite huge in the last 12 months specifically. And many of these were actually 16 to 17-year-olds who have been struggling with hostility in their household as well. But like Freya was saying, we've had instances where we've had to do top-ups for like credits on phones and stuff, and that's usually the type of intervention we wouldn't normally do. Yeah, so as we were saying, lockdown has definitely had a significant impact on young people.
And if maybe young people themselves or people that are working with young people, what's the best way for them to sort of get in touch? Is it to go through your website and look at what you've got on there?
Yeah, so I think if through our website is a lot of different ways to support us, ways that we can support people. In terms of fundraising, you can donate on the website, and also we really appreciate when people share our posts and tweets and social media, because it really helps in terms of more people being aware of what we do, more people potentially being able to support us, and more people who might need our support being aware of us too.
What I can do is I can put your website and social media in with this video as well. So if anybody's looking for that, the information will be sort of in the description or any text that sits with this video. So
That'd be great.
We'll really be able to find it. I haven't got anything else that I want to ask. I just want to see if there's anything else that either of you two wanted to say before we wrap up.
I might do a little plug for our ongoing research, which is ongoing at the moment. So we are doing a survey. It's been live, I think, for 6 weeks now, and it's looking at the experiences of LGBTQ plus youth who have experienced any form of homelessness in the UK in the last 5 years. So to fill it out, you need to be between the ages of 16 to 28, actually 30, because it's 5 years ago, so you can be 30. And you also, it's just an online link. It's been designed with YouGov. It takes around 15 minutes to answer, and you have to have been living in the UK when you were homeless to answer that survey, and LGBTQ plus as well. So at the moment we're doing really well in terms of responses. We've got a lot of representation for trans identities across sexual orientation as well, but we're not doing so great in terms of ethnicity. So we'd love to see some more Black and POC young people fill in the survey. So yeah, that's my little plug on that one, and I can provide you with the link to that survey as well.
Yeah, provide the link and then we'll make sure it's available for everyone as well.
Thank you.
Freya, is there anything else you wanted to say?
Just that if anyone was interested in fundraising, we've got a lockdown fundraising pack on the website, or if anyone has any questions to do with fundraising, then you can email supporters@akt.org.uk and I'll get back to you with any questions.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Jo and Freya, for giving us like an overview of what AKT do. I think you guys do some brilliant work, and it really is needed, especially at the minute. So if anyone does want to find out any more, look up AKT on website, look at their social media. They're pretty active. I follow you guys. So yeah, just follow and get involved and ask questions if you're not sure, have these conversations and just do the research and find out what's going on. So thank you.
Thanks very much for having us.
Thank you.